Starting. There we go. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the LDS Beta Reader Conference 2018 Q&A session with Lisa Mangum from Shadow Mountain Publishing. And if you could say that all that 10 times fast, you get a prize.
Hello, everyone.
We also have our fearless leader, Jenny, with us. So let's go ahead and get rolling here. Lisa, would you mind sharing what Shadow Mountain Publishing is and kind of what your background is as both an editor and a writer?
Sure. So Shadow Mountain is an imprint of Deseret Book Company. So you have Deseret Book Publishing, and they have two imprints, Deseret Book, which does LDS, mostly nonfiction, and then Shadow Mountain does non-LDS, mostly fiction, and it's geared for a general audience, for a national audience. And I've been managing editor there since 2014, which has been very exciting and a dream of mine for a long time. I actually started working at Deseret Book in 1997. So last year was my 20th anniversary in publishing, which is also very exciting. And my job as managing editor is to not only do acquisitions, so I read through submissions that come in and work from aspiring authors who are hoping to get published. But then I also do content editing and copy editing on the manuscripts that we accept for publication. And it's my job to make sure that they are perfect as much as they can be, and get to press on time, get the right cover, work with the author, work with marketing to get everything just so with the book. We do about 25 to 30 titles a year at Shadow Mountain. We range all ages, pretty much all genres, although we're really, really strong in middle grade and romance. Our proper romance line is just having its 20th release with Ashes on the Moor by Sarah Eden, which is very exciting. And of course, our middle grade fantasy is riding high with Dragon Watch by Brandon Mull, which is book 2 will be out later this fall. I also write young adult fiction of my own. So by day, I'm an editor. By night, I write young adult love stories. And that's been a lot of fun to also keep my hat in the ring of being creative and writing my own stories, as well as then being the editor and helping other people with theirs.
That's really cool.
So we have a first question for you. What
Sure.
kind of work do you look for? I'm guessing what submissions? You did say middle grade specific, but are there certain things you will not publish?
We don't really publish a lot of children's picture books. We do maybe 1 or 2 a year, and it's usually Christmas, and usually that is also tied into the Mormon Tabernacle Choir's Christmas program. So it's really, really hard to get a children's picture book placed with us. But other than that, we do middle grade, young adult, and adult for our age audiences. And then we're really strong in fantasy, romance. I'm really hunting hard for adult general fiction. And I would love to see some cozy mysteries again. We did a really good series with Josie Kilpack with her cozy mysteries, and I'd love to kind of see if we could get back into that space. And middle grade contemporary has been really a strong branch for us right now. And we're also hunting hard for young adult. We want to kind of get back into that arena and play stronger with young adult contemporary and young adult fantasy. So those are some of the things that I'm looking for right now. If you have one of those things, then you should send it in and let me look at it.
That's a nice plug. I like it.
Thank you.
So what's kind of the word count you're looking for middle grade, YA, and adult?
Middle grade is usually between, I think, 60 to 75,000 words is a really comfortable middle grade for us. Fantasy always gets a little extra on the top end just because the world building usually takes a little extra. Young adult is usually 75 to 85, and adult can be 85 to 100. Obviously, take as many words as it takes to tell the story, but if you fall somewhere kind of in that ballpark, you'll be in really good shape with a strong story.
So I got a question for you. How do you come up with a strong title?
A lot of fiction comes in with a good title already. That's not to say we haven't changed them in the past, but usually the author, if they've done their job right, they'll have figured out a good title to go with the story. If not, or if we feel like if marketing feels like we should come up with something a little stronger or a little better, then usually we'll have a brainstorming session at work, and we'll all get together and just put stuff up on the board and try to figure out what works the best. Then we usually end up with 2 or 3 options that we could live with or that we think are on the right track. And we send those to the authors to see if the author has an opinion or can weigh in. We just did this exercise with Alima Todd's new book that we're going to be publishing next year. And it came in with the title Voyage of a Thousand Stars, which was a very nice title, but I felt that it sounded way too science fiction for the fact that it was a historical romance set in Hawaii. And so we thought we should like figure something else out. So we came up with a lot of titles that used the word aloha in it, thinking that would be a good Hawaiian tie. And Alima came back and she's like, that actually is, that word specifically is something that I'm not comfortable using because it is so overused that she said, I think we can come up with something better. So we went back to the drawing board and we ended up with A Song for the Stars, which ties into the story, feels romantic, doesn't necessarily lead you down the science fiction path. And we feel really good about that. Cool. So watch for it next year.
So with the authors that you work with at Shadow Mountain, what kind of marketing and promotion support do you guys provide?
Marketing is so complicated and so tricky and can make or break a book. And it varies project by project, but we try to always make sure that our authors have book signing opportunities. If it's a middle grade or young adult, we try to get them posters or bookmarks. Our sales team always goes to BEA, ALA, TLA, a lot of big trade shows to present our books to the buyers and the librarians, the gatekeepers that would stock their books. We also make sure that our books are on the list for trade reviews from Publishers Weekly, Kirkus when appropriate, Library Journal, School Library Journal, the Horn Book Awards, state awards, things like that. Because a good review from one of those trade publications or a starred review can go a long way in helping with marketing. We also often help authors with school tours, school visit tours if they are writing for a young audience. We do newspaper, radio interviews, blog interviews, TV interviews, things like that. We just really try to cultivate and craft the marketing plans based on what's going to be best for the book.
Cool. It sounds like there's a lot that you guys try to offer to be able to help support that.
Yeah, and we're always interested in marketing ideas that an author can bring to the table. If they know somebody who knows somebody that could give us a lead, or if they have a really crazy idea that, hey, maybe we should have candy canes that go with every Christmas book, we'll listen to that and see if there's a way to make that work. Because authors love their books and we love their books, and we want to make sure that the readers love the book too, and that means they have to know about it.
What? I won't just write a book and everyone will magically be like, wow, this is the best book ever.
No, you have to tell people about your book.
Oh, is that how that works?
You mean you have to do your part too?
Yes, you do. Nobody.
Okay,
the best champion of your book is the author.
That's true. Okay, this morning we had a video presentation about writing to market by Victorine Leask. And so our question is, does Shadow Mountain look for books similar to what's on the market, or are they looking for something new?
A little bit of both. I think a lot of publishers do that. It's the best information that we have. If we knew exactly what was going to be popular in 18, 24 months, then we would just do that. So you have to take a look at what's happening now, what's on the shelf now, what's popular now, what's kind of getting the buzz and the attention now. And then you sort of have to extrapolate and say, okay, well, based on that, where do we think it might be going in the future, so we can try to sort of get a little bit of ahead of that. The other nice thing is, because most publishers work 18 to 24 months in advance, we're all kind of in the same boat. we're all kind of looking at the same things. So we could say, oh, right now, middle grade contemporary about children, dealing with bullies might be something that's really popular, a topic that everybody's talking about right now. We'll get a couple books on that topic or in that vein. And then when they eventually come out, it should still be a topic people are interested in. Sometimes we're right, sometimes we're not. So that's why it always comes still down to write the best book that you can, and that is your best selling point, even a little bit beyond what the market is doing.
Another technical question building off of that. What is the timeline from my book is accepted by Shadow Mountain to the day that I have that book in person and it's on the bookshelf in the store?
On the shelf. Yeah, that usually takes about 18 months, start to finish. That includes the some of the review time and the contract negotiation time at the beginning. I can tell you that the books we are saying to yes right now are being scheduled for late spring 2019 and early fall 2019. And we actually even have a couple books already in place for 2020, which means I don't know what year it is right now because my brain is already in 19 and 20, thinking ahead and looking at the schedule and seeing, do we have enough of all of the different genres to make that year successful for us. So when you submit a manuscript in, the review process can take 3 to 4 months. It can sometimes take longer than that, depending on other things that are going on. But once we've made a decision, we say, yes, we're going to publish it. Then it goes through a series of meetings and approvals with like the VPs and marketing and sales weighs in, and other areas of the company weigh in. And then we do a financial analysis to see, is the book even going to be financially viable for us? Can we make a profit on the book? Then we negotiate a contract, which can take however long it takes to negotiate a contract. Sometimes they go fast, sometimes they go slow. And by then we drop the book onto the schedule and start working on a cover, start working on marketing points, start working on making sure we have the right title. And then I'll usually at that point we'll start jumping in with content and revision requests from the author. And then the author and I will work really closely for a couple rounds of revisions. And then I'll go back through and do a copy edit, look for the nuts and bolts, grammar, spelling, punctuation. And we'll do advanced reading copies anywhere from 6 to 8 months prior to the release date. And then a lot of it is just letting the marketing machinery churn, get the word of mouth built up, get the buzz going, get the trade reviews in, and then it goes to press, and then it comes back to the warehouse, and then it's out on the shelf. And hopefully, if we've done our job right, all of the marketing and the book will come out at the same time so that everybody's like, oh, hey, yeah, I keep hearing about this book. It looks like it's really good. Maybe I should buy it and read it and put a review on Amazon. And then everybody wins.
Yay!
So publishing there's a lot of hurry up and wait when it comes to the schedule. And it's the main reason why it takes so long is because we want to make sure there's enough running room for the marketing so that people know about the book to buy it.
That makes a lot of sense.
So I kind of don't understand this question, but maybe you will. Should a writer begin with a query letter, a first chapter submission, or a full manuscript? Obviously, you probably want the full manuscript done, right? If you're going to.
Yes, you should have your whole manuscript done before you start the submission and the querying process, because there's nothing worse than having somebody say, yeah, send me your book, and then you have to say, oh, it's not done yet. Because then you sort of lost that opportunity of catching my attention when I have it. But as far as whether to send just a query or a partial or a full, that's going to depend entirely on the submission guidelines from the particular company that you're sending your work to. Everybody's got slightly different requirements of what they want. At Shadow Mountain, I want a cover letter, a query letter, those are often used interchangeably, and the full manuscript. and we have an online submission form that you fill out, and you attach the manuscript, and then it comes right in through our system electronically. There are other people that I know that want you to paste the cover letter and the first 3 chapters into the body of an email, or just the first 5 pages in the body of an email. Usually email attachments are frowned upon, but you have to read the guidelines really carefully, because they will spell out exactly what they want and how they want to receive it.
So one of the questions, I thought this was a good question, is if someone submits a manuscript and gets rejected, does that impact their chances of something in the future being accepted or rejected?
No, not at all. In fact, there's a lot of people that we've been working with who I've sent multiple rejection letters to on multiple projects until they finally get the right project at the right time, or their skills have come up. We're working with a gal for one of our proper romance books that we've kind of been working with her off and on projects for 4 or 5 years now. And I actually pay attention to people who submit repeatedly. As long as their work if I can tell that their work is improving, then I kind of keep them on a short list, like, oh, this is so-and-so. She sent a couple things in. They've never quite worked out, but clearly she's still working. Clearly she's still trying. She's got more stories in her. I take those submissions more seriously and look at them, because it means that the author is growing and improving. And at some point, it may be the right story at the right time is going to connect for us. So yeah, the only thing that I frown on is if you try to submit the same book multiple times after it's been rejected. That's usually frowned upon. But if you have new material or better material, for sure, send it in. Show me that you are still working.
That's cool.
And there's also times where I've sent a rejection letter and another publisher has picked up the book and it's gone on to do very well. So just because a no from one publisher doesn't mean your book isn't worthy of being published. It just means that it wasn't right for that particular house or that particular agent.
And when you send a rejection, do you ever send feedback?
Only on the ones that I kind of have been keeping tabs on, or that I really feel like I really want to see more from you, or there's something that just a little something could make all the difference. The majority of rejection letters are pretty standard. The thanks, but we're going to pass. It's rare that I send out with a rejection letter with specific feedback unless I seriously really want the book. And I'm hopeful that they're on the yes end of the spectrum if they could do a revision.
There's someone who sent in a query and hasn't heard back. How long should they wait before they check in with you?
Right now, it's about 12 to 14 weeks from the initial submission. But so if it's past that and you haven't heard, then for sure drop me an email and say, hey, just checking, because there have been times where something's gotten lost in the email system, or the internet gremlins have eaten it, and I just honestly don't have it. And so I'd much rather have you drop a note and say, can you check on this? And me say, yes, we still have it, and it's still under review. Or I can say, I never got it, please send it again.
Do you take on authors who are self-published, and what's your thoughts on that?
We do have authors who have self-published material, but we very rarely, probably very rarely, will take on a project that has already been self-published. So if you've published your book and it's available on Amazon or KDP or anywhere like that, it would be very unusual for us to then pick up that particular project. However, what it means to me is that you've been writing a book, you've been completing projects, you've been going through the system, you've been going through the process, and you might have the chops to write a new book that we would be interested in, and a new project that we might be able to pick up and publish. I think self-publishing is a great way for books to get into the hands of the people that want to read those stories, because we can't publish everything. And I love authors that are driven and proactive and want to share their stories and want to share their writing, but just know that we're probably not going to pick up something that's already been published. We're going to want something new from you.
But there's no negative stigma in adding already self-published authors to moving to a hybrid author.
Yes, okay. Exactly. Yeah, if you've started there and you've got some self-publishing credits under your belt, then that just, like I said, means you're in it for the long haul. You want this to be your career, and those are the kind of people I want to work with.
Great.
You and I had a conversation when we met in the Lone Star Conference in Dallas, where I think you mentioned something really insightful of that, sometimes traditional publishing isn't the right fit because you have deadlines and you have, that ownership, when self-publishing might be a better fit for what your particular goals are. And I just really appreciated that was a very open comment there.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's one of the things that I love is that with the rise of digital publishing and ebooks and self-publishing, it's easier now for people to do that. It's also means it's easier for anybody to do that. And sometimes books are out that probably should maybe still have a good editor scrubbing through it. But for the most part, there are different reasons why people publish, and there are different kinds of stories that are being told. And the goal is always to tell the story and to help get that story into somebody's hands, into the hands of a reader. And if you can do that self-publishing, then that's great. And if we can do it traditionally publishing, that's great too.
So we have a lot of people that are interested now in cozy mysteries, but they're not quite sure what they are. Can you define what a cozy mystery is?
Sure. Cozy mysteries are usually very mild. The murder usually happens off stage, sometimes even before the book gets started. They often feature a detective, an amateur detective usually, and it's usually a woman who's an elderly even. Think Murder, She Wrote. That's a cozy mystery. And for Josie Kilpax, we did them as a series of culinary cozy mysteries. So the main character, Sadie Hoffmiller, she's a retired school teacher. Her kids are grown. She likes to bake, and she's sort of the neighborhood busybody, and that kind of gets her involved into a number of mysteries and events that turn up in her neighborhood. And she finds out that she has a really good knack for that kind of solving of mysteries by bringing baked goods to people and getting them to talk. And that's kind of that cozy feel. So usually the main character is an amateur detective. They usually have some sort of other kind of hobby that they utilize in their detective work. And it's designed to be low on gore, low on in some cases, low on intensity, and even some of the suspense. It's more about the character development and the easy journey through the mystery. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Part
of why I like the cozy mysteries for Shadow Mountain is for that very reason, because we want it to be for a general audience, for a family-friendly environment, and that usually means we're looking for things that aren't high on the scale of gore and intensity and dead bodies and decapitations and stuff like that. And cozy mysteries pull all of that intensity down just a little bit, which makes it a really good fit for a publisher like us.
Okay. There was one question about paranormals. Do you accept paranormals?
We haven't for a little while, partly because I think the market was burned out on paranormals for a while. But I personally love them still, and I still keep my eyes open. And especially for our young adult strategy, I'd love to find another really good YA paranormal to put in the mix.
Okay, there we go, folks. Start writing.
Open call. Aren't you glad you came to the live Q&A?
Just so everybody else knows, in case you didn't know this, Lisa is a major fan of Supernatural. So that might be just, a good thought process of something to model things on without stealing from.
Fair enough.
Okay, I have a financial question.
Okay.
What?
No, you cannot borrow $20.
Okay. Okay, what metrics does Shadow Mountain use to determine financial viability?
Oh, that's a good question, and one that I am not capable of answering because I'm not in those conversations.
Are you saying that I stumped you?
A little bit. A little bit, Jenny. I think you win. I'll give you the $20. No, for financials, what I know, I can tell you this. We look at how many projections, like marketing and sales, and the buyers all weigh in on how many they think we can sell of the book. And then that goes into, with that number, then we look at how long is the book, page count matters, and what price should we sell the book at, the retail price matters. And then we sort of look at how much of the profit of that would stay with the company, what the margin is for our return on investment. And then if it falls within a particular window, then we say, yeah, we could financially make that work. And then we go off that to say, okay, well, we think we could sell 10,000 copies of this book at $17.99. And then that's kind of our benchmark of what we shoot for when we plan our marketing efforts, when we plan with, getting for the cover and the design and the editing, all that folds into how much we actually spend on the book to help us.
You do all that before you accept the book?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot goes into it then, not just, this is a good idea.
Yeah. If it was just, hey, I like this idea, we should do it, it would be a whole different ballgame. But we've got to make sure everybody's on board, not only with the concept, but that financially, because publishing is a business, we've got to make money. We want to make sure that, at least on paper, it looks like we could actually make a profit on the book, which is good because we want to pay the authors, right? That's your job. We're going to hire you to write a book for us, and we want to pay you for that work. And the best way to do that is to end up with a book that we know how to sell, we know how to market, that people are going to want to talk about, and so that more people buy it. The more people buy of your book, the more money you make.
Right.
So if, as an author, I submit the first book of a series, how much would you want to know about the plans for the rest of the series?
Just that you are planning a series. It's the first in a trilogy. That's really all you have to say. I don't need to know on the outset plot lines or character arcs or any of length or any of that for the subsequent books, because if I'm not in love with book 1, I don't care what happens in 2 and 3. So you've got to sell me on what happens in book 1 with the note that this is intended to be the first in a series, so that I go into the review knowing not to expect a tidy wrap up at the end.
And then with the series,
you don't have to have written book 2 and 3 to query 1. In fact, there's a lot of general opinion that it's sometimes dangerous to write book 2 in a series, because, like I said, if nobody likes book 1, nobody's going to like book 2. And so there's advice I often hear given is write book 1 and then write something else. And then at whatever point somebody picks up book 1, then you say, great, I've got my outline all ready for book 2. Let me actually turn that into a finished manuscript.
So along with this, is being part of a trilogy a pro or a con?
It depends entirely on the weather of the day. It's hard to answer that. We've got, if a story comes in that is identified as the first in the trilogy or the first of a series, we go in looking at it and say, okay, well, if we say yes to this, then we're kind of saying yes to the whole series. And that's one of the conversations, one of the factors that we look at when we're deciding whether or not to publish it. We haven't always been able to finish series. Sometimes the sales just haven't warranted doing book 2 or book 3, which always kind of breaks my heart. And then there have been other instances where the series has done really well and where we've been glad that we've had more to do. We've been glad that the author had something in place for subsequent volumes. I don't know that it's a pro or a con either way. Unless, well, I would say it's rare for us to do like in the romance genre, where it would be a true 3-part trilogy, where it's one story, one couple, one arc over 3 books. I don't see that a lot in romance. I see companion volumes all the time where a character from book 1 ends up being the star of book 2, but they're still independent, standalone kinds of stories. I mostly see that kind of series structure for middle grade YA fantasy is where I mostly see it, which makes sense. That those are both genres and age groups that like series, that like trilogies, that want to come back for more.
And their parents go to the bookstore and go, "Oh no, it's a series. There's my next $100."
There's another one. Yes. And we're like, yes, there's another one. Buy them all.
It's good.
So Shadow Mountain likes family friendly. So if a book has a brief scene in a whorehouse without the actual sex part, that shows the kind of life the girl is trying to avoid, would that be rejected?
No, that wouldn't be. Because for the thing that you just said, it's there to show the life she's trying to escape from. So even though it's family friendly, it's fine if you have dark things in your book, if you have hard things, if you have if your characters are the kind of people at the beginning that you might not want to associate with, because the point of the story is the journey that brings them into a better place or to grow as characters and as people. And that's totally fine. What we mostly sort of frown on is if the story glorifies that kind of behavior or doesn't show consequence for bad decisions. Things like that usually kind of get little X marks on them as opposed to check marks. But yeah, if that's just the setting, then that would not be grounds for an instant rejection at all.
Okay, I'm going to switch gears for a second because I have a burning question myself. Okay. So authors who are agented,
yes,
do they have an advantage over authors that are just on their own?
Yes, I think they do. Because the agent, for a couple of reasons. One is that the agent's job is to help make sure that you get the best deal possible from the publisher. That's why contract negotiations can sometimes take a long time, because as the publisher, our job is to make sure we get the best deal out of it. And the agent's job is to make sure that the author gets the best deal out of it. And so between the two, we're going to come to a common ground where everybody's happy. But what it means is that an agent who is skilled at that, who understands the process, who can evaluate your contract, know what to ask for, know what to give on, know where the limits are, means that they can take care of all of that legal business, and you can write the book, which is what you do best. So I do think that there is an advantage to having an agent for that purpose. Having said that, you do not have to have an agent to submit to Shadow Mountain. Probably half of our list are authors that are unagented. We even have a lot of authors who, in the process of their career with us, end up getting an agent, and that's fine. We say, okay, great, you've got an agent now. Now we'll work with them on the next project.
Okay. So what are, we had a couple questions that are similar. One of them is, should a manuscript be professionally edited before being submitted?
Not necessarily. I always hesitate to say just flat out yes, because that's a big expense for people to have their manuscript professionally edited before they submit it. And often authors, it's a big investment right up front. And with still no real indication, like just because it's been professionally edited, you may still not get an acceptance from a publisher for any number of other reasons. We might have another book that's very similar to yours that's already on the schedule. Doesn't matter how beautiful your book is, we already have something that fills that need. We're not going to publish yours. And so I tend to recommend to authors, do the very best that you can with your self-editing, with your beta readers, with your general knowledge of grammar and spelling, and make sure that the big things are taken care of, that your plot is strong, that your characters are believable, that your dialogue is authentic, that your voice is really strong. Because other things, the typos, the odds and ends, the accidental mistake of she's in a black dress in the beginning of the scene and a blue dress by the end of the scene, those are things that are not the kinds of things that I reject a manuscript over. When I come across things like that in the review and the acquisitions phase of it, and I'm like, oh, whoops, there's a typo. Is it fixable? Yep, it's easy. It'll fix it if I run spell check. That's fine. That's not a knock against your story. What is a knock against your story is if I come across something and I say, oh, there's massive point of view shifts every other paragraph in this story. Is it fixable? Yes. Can I fix it? Yes. How much time is it going to take me to fix it? More time than I can realistically devote to that project. That should go back to the author. They're not ready yet for prime time, so to speak. But the picky little typo, futsy kinds of things, I can fix that, no sweat. And that will never be the kind of thing that gets it rejected. So if you are going to have something professionally edited, I would pay the money for content and development editing more than necessarily copy edits at that point, because copy edits probably aren't going to get you booted out the door, but content stuff probably will. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, yeah. And then with that, with polishing a manuscript, besides kind of having beta readers and critique partners, is there anything you would recommend as a technique or something to kind of help polish that?
At some point you have to let it go. You have to stop rearranging furniture just for the sake of rearranging furniture. And that's it's a hard thing for authors to do, because they keep thinking it's a big chance and it's got to be perfect and I've got to send it in. And what if they say no? And at some point you have to, when you've done all of that, when you've done the beta readers, when you've gone through it for the umpteenth time and you really are feeling like this is really good, this is really strong, I feel really good about it. At that point, you have to just start sending it out. And you just have to bite the bullet and not be afraid and send it, mistakes and all. I have never seen a manuscript come through the slush pile that has been perfect. It's not supposed to be perfect. My job as an editor is to help you see the vision and help you realize what you want and help polish your book to where it can be perfect. But I certainly don't expect it to be perfect when you send it in. So take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. Send it in.
Okay. All right.
I have some money questions, and maybe
money questions.
Yeah, money.
Okay.
We got people thinking about the dollar bills here.
Yeah.
And
this is your job.
We need the smackdown, right? Because we need the realistic answer.
Okay.
So, what is a realistic range for a contract deal for a new author to expect from Shadow Mountain these days? And well, there's a couple of questions within this. So that's the first one. And the second one's how many authors sell enough to get royalties after their advance? And then the last one is how much can an author actually make? So they're all kind of tied together.
Okay. So yeah, what about the money is what is the question I'm hearing.
Yes.
Shadow Mountain, we do offer advances, but they are often, especially for debut authors, relatively small by comparison to some of the other big houses. On the one hand, that's really good because it means that you usually earn out of your advance faster, which means you start getting royalties faster, which means you make more money faster, which is really nice. So in answer to that second part of the question, most of our authors actually earn out their advance and receive royalties, often within the first year of their book sales. They've earned back their advance. Occasionally it doesn't happen where they don't earn out their advance, but I would say 90%.
So what happens if they don't earn out their advance?
Then we just keep selling the book as best we can until that advance is in fact earned out. If it never does, if we paid a really large advance for an author and the book just didn't work, usually at that point we just sort of have to sometimes write it off and say, well, that's the cost of doing business, that we thought the book was going to do what better than it did, and that's just how it is. Occasionally we will sometimes have that advance against your next book. So perhaps, one scenario could be you publish book A, you get an advance that you don't earn out. Then we publish book B, we don't pay you in advance. And then the royalties that you start earning on that one come after you pay back the advance on book A. Does that make sense? how they kind of are dependent on each other. And again, that's the kind of thing that an agent can help walk you through and can help negotiate what that kind of advance structure looks like and what would be best for you. I personally, as a writer, when I published my books, did not take an advance for the very reason I didn't want that extra burden sort of looming over me, like, oh, I've got to sell enough to like make sure that I pay my advance back. I thought, I don't need it. I have a full-time job. I'm totally fine. I just want to write the books, get them published, and then whatever royalties come my way, money that I actually earned. And that took a lot of pressure off of me.
So can you define what an advance is, small and large? Like, are you talking 2,000, 5,000? What is?
Yeah, for us, for debut authors, I think advances are usually between $2,000 and $7,000 for a debut author. The more established you are with us, the higher that advance can go, to 5 digits. Sometimes we've paid advances. I don't think we've paid anything. Well, I don't know the highest advance we've paid, but it hasn't ever been 6 figures. I can tell you that. But there's a big difference between 10 and 90. So somewhere in there is where the advance sort of tops out for us. Okay. But as a incoming first-time debut author with us, you could probably realistically expect somewhere between 2 and 7 for your first book. And then as far as, oh, go ahead.
Well, one question was, wouldn't having paid in advance put pressure on the publisher to market it enough to make the advance back, to earn that money back?
Yes. And that's part of that symbiotic relationship that we have between marketing and publishing and the author and the agent. We all are kind of in this together. And yes, paying in advance not only reassures the author, we do love you, we do love your book, we do really want to publish it, we are going to get behind it and do everything we can to make that advance back for you and for us. And so there is some of that mentality that goes into it, but we try to love all of our books. We want to promote all of our books and market all of them to the best of our ability, regardless of what the advance is. Sometimes the marketing department doesn't even know what kind of advance the author gets because that's in the contract. And we usually don't talk about contract details just around the office. And so marketing just knows this is an important title for us. This is one we were really putting a lot of marketing dollars behind. We want to put a lot of emphasis on this one. Go to it. Let's get it done.
Okay. And so what is the percentage for royalties, like an average?
Yeah, that'll depend. It can depend on whether it's printed in hardback or paperback. It can also depend on if it's your first book or your 50th book. But in general, ballparking it, not a lawyer disclaimers, I think a realistic royalty a first-time author could look at is probably 8 to 10% for the like maybe the first 15,000 copies, and then often royalties will be graduated. You get a higher royalty once you've sold X number of copies, so that the longer your book is in print, the more copies you sell, the higher your royalty goes, because the sooner we've earned back our investment in it, and the more money goes to you as the author. So it's a long-term game. It's on the one hand, getting an advance is really nice because you get a big lump sum right at the beginning, but you have to also then make sure that your book has a nice long shelf life to continue to sell and continue to be interesting to readers for a long time to come, which is good for everybody.
Awesome.
Did I answer all of the money questions?
Oh, that was amazing. Yeah, you
good.
Good job. With your own writing, do you have a community of writers you work with to make your own writing better, and how do you work together?
I do. Early on, when I was working on Hourglass Door, which was my first one, I did have a writing group that we met every Saturday and exchanged pages and workshopped and talked to each other and helped each other with plot and structure and just general support. And I was in that group for a number of years, which was really great, as we were all sort of learning together how to tell stories and have it be a safe place to fail. Like, we could bring horrible things and people could say, this isn't great, maybe you should try it this way. And you're like, yes, I should, that is better. So it was a great way to grow and to learn and to practice. Partway through my writing of Forgotten Locket, which was the 3rd book in that series, I found that I didn't necessarily have the time to still maintain that writing group relationship. And so at that point, I pulled back and just had about 2 or 3 really, really trusted, close readers that I gave the manuscript to when I was done. I sort of wrote it all by myself all the way through, and then gave it to some beta readers to give me specific feedback that I'm like, okay, I need you to look exactly for these kinds of things and exactly these kinds of reactions, because this is exactly where I think the story is weak. And I've done that kind of thing. Lately, I've been doing a lot more short fiction, and that's been a lot easier as well to then hand that off to some trusted, close readers for feedback, because it's not 80,000 words, it's 20. And so I can usually send those out to a few extra people for feedback. But I love writing groups. I love critique groups. I think that is one of the single best things you can do for your writing, is to get it in front of other people and weigh their feedback and listen to what they have to say and take what's going to work best for your story and save the other stuff for another day.
Okay, I missed one money question.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
It says, besides the advance, what are the other costs the publisher carries?
The other costs are, they pay for the editor. They pay my salary to work on your book. We pay for the custom design of your book. So that may include paying an illustrator for original artwork. We also, sometimes that requires paying permission fees for cover artwork. It also pays the salary of the art director. We pay for all of the printing and binding and shipping and storage and marketing of the project. So we have to pay for all of those people as well. Any auxiliary marketing things like bookmarks or pins or posters or pencils or anything like that, we will pay for. If you're an author that we choose to take to someplace like BEA or ALA to sign and do promotions, we'll pay for your travel and airfare and hotels to do those kinds of things. We'll invest and pay for the author tour if you're going to do school visits, things like that. So that it's a big investment to take on the project, and you as the author, we never come to you and say, you need to write us a check for X amount of dollars for this, for us to do this part of our job. We do all of that. And so it can cost a lot to get a book done.
Yeah. And I guess that would be my other answer to a question. What's the advantage of traditionally publishing as opposed to self-publishing? You just answered that. You're taking care of a lot of the cost of what an author would have to pay for, plus giving them lots of support and resources.
Yeah, we're going to be your team behind you every step of the way. And one of the best advantages of working with a traditional publisher is then you have a team that everybody does what they're best at, which leaves you, the author, free to do what you're best at, which is come up with a new story and write a new book, because your creativity is what you are selling. That is your commodity. That's what you are putting a price tag on. That's what your time is worth. That's something that you can do that nobody else can do. Other people can design covers, other people can edit, but nobody can write the book that you are writing. And so that is valuable. That means your time and your effort is very valuable. And having a traditional publisher behind you frees you up to do that very thing, while I do the editing, while Richard does the cover design, while Jill does the marketing, while Sarah does your social media and publicity. We take care of all of that so that you can write and get us another book that we can publish and sell.
Sounds good.
It makes it sound so easy, right? Just that's all you have to do is just write the book, right? Write the book and sell it. It's easy.
So we're down to the last 10 minutes, guys. So if you have any burning, lingering questions, now's the time to ask while we have Lisa with us.
Just real quick, I had one quick question of, all of the acronyms you just used, ALA and things like that? I think I know what you're talking about, but can you just say, what are the big trade groups?
Sure. So BEA is Book Expo of America. That is held every year in New York. Usually New York, it's traveled a little bit. And that is like the main trade show that all the publishers come to for a weekend to unveil their fall lineup, their big hits. The authors come and sign. They do panels and breakfasts, and all the big stuff happens at BEA. TLA is the Texas Library Association. That happens, I think, once a year. Right now, in fact, it's happening right now. And that is really specifically designed just for Texas librarians, because yes, Texas is big enough to warrant its own big trade event for its librarians, because it's a huge mover and shaker when it comes to publishing and book sales. And then ALA is the American Library Association. They have trade shows and conferences that are held twice a year, midwinter, and then usually one in June, early June. That location travels as well. And again, it's designed for the American librarians from schools and public libraries and university libraries to come and see what's out there and what they're going to buy or recommend stocking in their library systems, which is a huge avenue, a huge channel for publishers, is to get their books into schools and libraries. Librarians are great advocates of reading, go figure. And if you can get librarians on your side, if you can get librarians talking about your book, recommending it to their teachers, to their patrons, to their students, then that is a huge boost. You can see a huge boost in your sales from that. So we want to court them, and we want to make sure our books are available so that they know about them.
How many submissions does Shadow Mountain accept every year? Like, realistically, how many books do you publish each year? How many are in the review process at a time?
We get about 1,000 submissions a year from through our submission intake system. Of those, I'm going to say half, maybe more than half. 75% of them are not really ready for review or for publication at all. They're either not right for our market, the writing isn't up to par, the genre is wrong, even haven't followed the formulas, things like that make it kind of easy to reject because they're just not right for us. Of the 25% that are left, we get, of those, in a good year, maybe 3 manuscripts that make it all the way through to acceptance and publication. And that sounds really scary, but the truth is, we publish new books by new authors every year. It's something I'm really proud about for Shadow Mountain, is that we have debut authors every year. We have people that we pull out of the slush pile every year. It is still a viable, acceptable way to get your book published and to break in, so that you can then be a previously published author and move to the front of the line when your next book comes in. And then we do, like I mentioned before, I think we do between 25 and 30 titles a year. But that includes paperback re-releases of backlist titles and continuing series that we already have, planned out. Dragon Watch is going to be a 5-book series. So for the next 4 years, we know that we're going to have a Dragon Watch book every year. And that takes up a spot every year. That's okay, because it's Brandon Mull, and we can't wait to read the next book, just like you can't wait to read the next book.
I think kind of a good, because we got to start wrapping up here, a good kind of ending question would be, what really excites you when you're reading a manuscript?
I always get excited about a manuscript that I read that makes me, Lisa, the reader, excited about it. I always try to come to the acquisitions, to the slush, as if I just want to find a good story to fall in love with. Just like I go to Barnes & Noble or I go to the library, just looking for the book that I want to take home and escape into. So I always get excited when a book starts strong and immediately pulls me into a strong character voice or a strong setting or with strong action. because Lisa, the reader, is looking for that kind of thing. I know I've got something special when I want to read instead of doing my other work, when I read through my lunch break, when I want to take it home, when I'm like, yeah, nobody talk to me right now. I have to find out what happens next. That tells me that I've got something special because reader Lisa is excited about it. Editor Lisa will come along later and fix things and polish it up and make it better. But if reader Lisa can get hooked for the very same reasons that you as a reader love the books that you love, that makes a big difference.
It's cool. Jenny, do you have any final burning questions?
Well, I just refreshed my screen and it like showed a whole bunch more. So I think I missed some.
I'm sure. We had a list of about 50 or 60 questions to start with. And so,
you may just want to just log into this YouTube thing. And if you see any and you want to answer them, you can just answer them on the chat. But a lot of them are personal and are not for the benefit of everyone. So,
okay.
Yeah.
This was super fun. I'm so glad you guys invited me to come hang out with you for an hour and talk shop and talk about books and talk about publishing.
You're awesome, Lisa. You are a huge contributor to our writing community, and I know so many people look up to you. So thank you so much for all that you do.
Well, thank you. I couldn't do my job if you guys don't do your job. You write the books that I fall in love with, and everybody wins.
That's fantastic. So thank you again. I really appreciate your time. And I also appreciate how much time you spend going to conferences and things and sharing what you know. I think a lot of people have really benefited from that.
Thank you. A lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I think we'll go ahead and wrap up here. I haven't posted the next video yet because for some reason I've been busy. So I will do that once we're offline. So thank you, Lisa, again. And thanks, Jenny, for being my co-host here and keeping track of that. That's helped a lot. And we'll get moving on to the next part of the conference. And also, we should be in the near future announcing the winners of the first chapter contest. So everybody can go, ooh. It's going to be awesome. All right. Well, I'll see y'all later and a great day.
Okay, bye.